guys, this is Ben. Welcome back to Box Office with Ben, where I break down the weekly box office numbers. Alright guys, this was the big weekend. Doctor Strange 2 finally opened. So we're gonna break down its opening numbers, see how well it did in comparison to other MCU films, in comparison to the films that have come out so far this year. So let's jump right into it. Doctor Strange 2 opened with $185 million this weekend. So obviously this is a huge, massive success for Doctor Strange and the biggest opening weekend in 2022 thus far. Second biggest opening of the whole pandemic era, just behind Spider-Man No Way Home, which obviously opened with one of the biggest openings of all time with $260 million. So 185 million, huge number, great number. The second highest opening this year was The Batman with 134 million. So this is even another pretty big jump on top of that. So a big success. It's also the biggest Disney released MCU opening since before the pandemic, with Black Widow only opening to 80 million, Shang-Chi opening to 75, and Eternals opening to 71 million. So this is over $100 million more than the Disney released MCU movies since the pandemic era. This also puts Doctor Strange at number 11 on the highest domestic openings of all time, so right outside the top 10, and number 7th for the MCU of all time, which really shows you and tells a lot about the state of movies and what type of movies are making big money. It's Marvel movies. And with $450 million globally, it was the number 10th biggest opening worldwide of all time. And the 5th biggest for the MCU, just behind Endgame, Infinity War, No Way Home, and Captain Marvel, actually, which surprised me a little bit. When you're coming off of Spider-Man with no major releases since then, other than The Batman, this thing was gonna pop, and it was building right off of success from Spider-Man. It had a lot of hype behind it, so this number is not surprising. Now, if you remember, last weekend I predicted that it was gonna make $210 million. That was my number. I thought it was gonna break that $200 million window. So even though $185 million is a great opening, I do think that it's actually a little bit lower than it should have been, and that it otherwise would have been if not for a couple of factors. I think the biggest factor when it comes to this not breaking 200 million is its reception. So last week I said that I thought it might not make that $200 million, and it might come closer to the low industry projections of 150 if it's not received super well. And as it turns out, it wasn't received super well. Now, it still has a 75% score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is solid, but it got a 87% audience score versus my predicted 97, which is on the lower end for the MCU, actually. And it got a B+ cinema score, which sounds good on paper, but in reality, a B+ isn't great. A B+ actually kind of means okay word of mouth. Some people aren't really liking it. It likely means that it's a bit divisive. So this is actually one of the lowest cinema scores in the entire MCU. You have Eternals with a B, which was the lowest in the MCU, and then you have Thor: The Dark World, which also got a B+. So this is amongst the lowest cinema scores in the MCU, which means this is one of the worst received MCU films from audiences on opening weekend. So that's interesting, and obviously because of that, the word of mouth was not as good. People weren't rushing back to see this movie. People weren't rushing to bring their friends to go see this movie. They weren't going to see it multiple times opening weekend like they might have for other MCU films. So now what I'm wondering is, can Doctor Strange 2 hit $1 billion, which seems to be that number that everybody wants to hit for a big blockbuster like this? And I think it will. When you look at films that have opened with over $150 million domestically, only 4 of them have failed to hit $1 million at the end of the day. And no movie has opened as big as Doctor Strange. No movie has opened with over $170 million and not hit $1 billion. So with that stat, it seems pretty obvious that this is gonna hit $1 billion. Now that being said, this is not one of the more well-received films in the MCU, like we've said. So how much will this film drop over the coming weeks? How much are audiences just gonna not wanna go back to see this at all? How many people are gonna be turned off from going to see it because of the negative reviews? I don't know, that could be a factor here. Also, China's not in play with this one as well. Whereas the last Doctor Strange movie made 100 million in China alone, this one looks like it's not gonna have a Chinese release, so that's another big hit. Also, another factor is that we don't have any major releases this month. We don't have a big release until Top Gun Maverick at the end of the month. So it has, you know, like a couple weeks here to make a lot of money where it has like no competition. It's already at almost $500 million though worldwide. So I think it's gonna hit $1 billion. All right, number 2 was The Bad Guys, which made another $9.7 million, which is a 39.8% drop. I think that's a pretty solid drop, especially considering obviously Doctor Strange opening, and they're both kind of family movies. The Bad Guys still managed to hold its ground and make another $9.7 million, which is pretty great. The movies overall did have a bit of a bigger drop off this weekend, which is expected with Doctor Strange taking up so much of the marketplace. Sonic 2 dropped 46.3%, which isn't terrible, made another $6.2 million, but it's slowing down at this point. It's made over $350 million worldwide, so that's a very solid haul for that movie. Fantastic Beasts 3 dropped another 52.5% this weekend, which isn't very good. This has just been dropping off like a rock. Every week it's been taking big, massive drop-offs. It's very likely that it will not hit $100 million domestically at this point, which is kind of embarrassing for Fantastic Beasts. Like I said last week, this is gonna be the only movie in the Harry Potter franchise to not hit $100 million domestically. So that's not great. Even The Lost City, a random rom-com that came from Paramount, has managed to make more than Fantastic Beasts 3, a Harry Potter movie. So that tells you a lot. This is a very interesting movie. I feel like this movie just kind of came and went. Nobody really talked about it, didn't really make an impact, which is strange when you're a big franchise movie like this to make no impact. It's kind of interesting. Everything Everywhere All at Once actually dropped this weekend for like the first time in a couple weeks after, you know, actually going up the past couple weeks, which was crazy. So it dropped off 40%. The Lost City also continues to do very well. The lowest drop in the top 10 this weekend with only a 34.5% drop. This movie just has legs, man. This movie has legs. It's up to $95 million domestically. That's incredible. That's incredible for this type of movie, honestly. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the top 10 for this weekend, but let's go to next week where we have one major release in Firestarter, the only movie that dared to come out a week after Doctor Strange. This is a remake of a Stephen King novel. This is a new Stephen King adaptation starring Zac Efron. It's also a movie that's releasing day and date on Peacock, so how much of the box office is going to be taken up from that, I don't know. I'm gonna put my prediction at $8 million, which I think is maybe even a little bit generous. I don't know how much interest there is in this movie. The marketing hasn't been great. I kind of forgot this movie was coming out. Honestly, I think the trailers haven't looked that great either. And the fact that Universal is putting this on Peacock kind of tells me that they don't have a lot of confidence with it, and it's probably not a great movie. So for all of those reasons, I don't think it's going to do super well. People are going to rather go back and rewatch Doctor Strange than see Firestarter, and if they really want to see it, they'll probably just watch it on Peacock. As for an audience score prediction, I'm going to put mine at 72%. I think that audiences might enjoy it enough, but not love it. Cinema score, I'll put it at a B, maybe a B minus. Like I said, I don't think it looks really that good. And horror movies don't tend to get great cinema scores. They just don't. Anyways, that's it for the box office for this weekend. Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? What do you think of its opening? Do you think that it's going to hit $1 billion worldwide? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back with the box office next week. See ya.